It's freaking cold. But I have a little bit of time this morning and I feel like talking. I feel like doing this. Hope the sound of the air heating up my car is not too loud. There's been a lot of anger. That's definitely something that I'm processing, that is moving through. And I am just noticing, this is all just an expression of things that I notice. And one of the things that I notice is that is, I don't want to call it progress. I don't like that word. I think it's kind of delusional. Evolution happens, growth happens. There's maybe just sort of this notion that progress is something that humans do. Progress is like self-made, like I made that happen. Nothing has been made to happen, ever. Everything that happens just happens. This is my experience of it. And that includes the development of the experience of being, the growth of being, the evolution of being. It is simply time and, the growth of this being, which we are, the growth of being, more accurately, is not a linear thing. It's cyclical and expansive. It's a little, maybe more like a tree with rings, it branches out in all these directions, and it's not just straight up. It's not a straight shot. It's not one obvious thing. There's a building up that happens over many, many, many seasons, many cycles, and when the time is right for certain developments to occur, then they occur. Anyway, I'm trying to figure out where I want to start with this because it's all been kind of scrambling around. I've been feeling a lot of heavy things. I've been feeling a lot of heaviness, a lot of that not enoughness, the hallmark of the mind and the mind-created identity. Insufficiency, inadequacy, not enoughness, failure, wrongness, unworthiness, just this continuous undercurrent of wrong, not enough, something's wrong. And I see in this moment how that pushes us outside of the present, because it's this sensation, first of all, that appears to be generated by the mind, and I'm not quite sure, whether the narrative sort of comes first or the sensation. I'm not sure. Certainly it could be that the narrative starts in a way that is so subtle that it's very difficult to even see. And then once the sensation has set in, the narrative can kind of turn on full blast because it's pointing to a sensation that was just created by it. As it's all backwards and screwy. But realizing that, again, and none of this is new realization. This is just builds upon existing realization. That this sensation doesn't mean anything. The experience, the presence of a sensation of not enough does not indicate not enough. It is not an indication of anything. That's where this whole mental story really kicks in, of something's wrong and then I gotta fix it, I gotta change it, I gotta make a change, right? I gotta make a change, I gotta start living different, I gotta do something different. That's where we get that kind of itch that seems to come into people, particularly at the end of the year and the start of a new Gregorian calendar year. It's time to do something different. Gotta be more, gotta be better, gotta make more of myself. And it's not true. That entire narrative, like every narrative, is invented, and it is false. And the experience of, we've talked before, I've talked to myself before, because that's all this is, about how the mind is pretty frequently setting off these alarm bells for things that don't exist. Totally made up spectral boogeymen. That is like 99% of the time. In fact, when there is like a genuine situational arousal of a threat, it's usually in the body, and it's like before thought happens, when it's genuine, when there is perhaps a potential need to actually react in the moment very quickly to something. That leaves thought out, because thought's just going to get in the way of that. And that is actually a part of being present in the moment, when the body, which is always present, reads the cues and reacts. And maybe you have a flash of adrenaline, but it all happens so fast that you don't have time to think about it. You don't have time to mess around with thought and turn something into a thought, into a story, into whatever. It happens. So in the moment when you really need it, your body is there, and your body will respond. And that's it. And all of the thinking and the preparation is really just a distraction. It's really just a distraction from being right now. So there's been a lot of that feeling, that really intense hole in the chest that's caving in kind of feeling of something is wrong, not enough, I'm failing, I'm missing out on something, this whole fear of missing out. And all of that is just made up. It isn't true. It is not an indication of anything. The fear of missing out is not an indication that you're missing out. The feeling of not being enough, of being inadequate, is not an indication that you are those things. It is just a sensation. It's just a sensation. And then I found myself waiting for that sensation to go away, because it didn't feel good. But I was waiting for the sensation to go away so that I could feel better. And I realized here I am doing it again. I'm putting off feeling good for feeling better. If I just give up feeling better, if I can see clearly right now that what I'm doing is putting off joy, I am waiting for something to change. A lot of times we go out and we make a change, and then we tell ourselves, now I can do it, now I can feel good because I made the change, and so it's safe now to feel good. And then, of course, it's temporary. Inevitably, maybe even very quickly, maybe even the next moment after the change, we go, oh, I feel it again. Oh no, I feel it again. That sensation that something is wrong, and I must have to do something to make this sensation go away so that I can feel good again, so that I can feel better from this bad sensation. And there it is. And I could see, plain as day, all I'm doing is putting on, this is just a distraction, this is just a ploy by the mind, a clever one, and all I'm doing is giving away my power to feel joy. The only place that I can ever access joy which is right now. When I put joy, when I put my experience of joy, whatever it is I want to feel, it's really joy underneath, peace, satisfaction, security, all of that is joy. When I put that into a future time, whatever way I want to word it, however I'm framing this, if it's a future time when I have more money, if it's a future time next week after the dentist appointment, if it's a future time in 10 years when I'm whatever, if it's a future time that doesn't have exactly a time limit because I don't know when it's going to happen, but it's just when I don't feel this anymore, that's a really tricky one. That one is nefarious. When it's a future time that I just don't feel this other sensation, then I'll feel better. Then I'll feel good. Then I'll let joy back into my experience. But joy doesn't exist there. Joy is not in the future. Joy can only ever be right now. And we put it down and we walk away from right now. And that's okay. That's not a problem either. That's not a bad thing. I do it mostly out of habit. Sometimes it's done intentionally. But when it's done intentionally, I find that joy actually comes with me because I'm being present, because the intentionality is a present moment conscious decision. And so then when I'm intentionally venturing into the sensation, I'm not actually separate from the joy. I'm not separate from the present. Everything is happening right now. But even when we do walk away from it, it's okay. It's not a big deal. We can always come back because it's always right where we left it, which is always exactly where we are right now. The only place that anybody ever is, and the only place that joy ever is. It's always right here. It's always right now. We can always pick it up again. And the practice that I see is to just keep picking it up, to practice picking it up. And as often as I notice that I've set it down, to pick it up again. And it kind of is this changing of hands where it's like I can only hold one thing. And again, it's not like grief, like genuine emotion. If there is grief, that doesn't just go away. But it's like it's in this pool of joy. If joy is sort of like this scoop of water I have in my hands. And so it does take both hands to hold it, but other things can sit in it also. And sometimes those things just dissolve. Sometimes they're totally joy soluble and they just disappear into my little pool of joy. And other times they're not, but they sit there in the joy, and bathed in it, the experience of them becomes different. Because now it's flavored with joy. Now it's been washed in the joy of being in this present moment, being fully me. Anyway, it's a practice. I'm not a master, but I do have devotion to this because it feels good, because this is my joy, because what the fuck else am I going to be devoted to other than the being of myself, the joy of myself, the experience of love which I am. And that experience of love, which I am devoted to, overflows, spills over into everything else. My devotion to my relationship with my partner is an extension of my devotion to myself. My relationship with my being, which is to say being my being, and my practice of that. And that just enhances and reinforces my devotion, which again is not a commitment. To me, those words are different. To me, commitment is like a willpower thing, whereas devotion is obviously yes, because this feels good. Yes, I'm going to keep doing this because it feels good. because I want to. There's not like something else in it. There's no like light at the end of the tunnel. This isn't to achieve something. This isn't the long road to whatever. This is great right now, and I enjoy this, and it's like, it's just obvious. Why would I do anything else? There is nothing else worth doing. I mean, you can, create, that's fun, but none of it means shit without this. This is the crux. This is everything. This, the experience of being, the practice of being, the practice of stepping into my joy, my love, my loving, and feeling that overflow, and feeling the love of myself in my connection, in my relating with others, especially this most intimate of relationships. Of course I'm devoted to that. I'm devoted to me. I'm devoted to being me, because it's the only thing that feels good. Anyway, the other part of this is just, I had an interesting experience yesterday in watching 2 YouTube videos. Both of them about, I'm looking for the right word. I guess you could call it self-help, self-growth, self-development. I also don't like those words anymore. But evolution of consciousness, maybe that's, but that, I like that word. That's not necessarily what these videos were about. One of them more than the other. So this is that, and the first thing I do want to say is this is not to shame. This is not to lambaste anybody. Nothing is wrong here. There's not a problem. This is not an indictment of anyone's character or their being. This is not that at all. Just a curious experience that I had, and really a recognition that I'm having a lot of experiences that I find upsetting, triggering in some way, that are triggering anger specifically. And I'm noticing that it seems regularly to have to do with a couple different things, but one of them specifically is behavior, ways that I have behaved in the past, and now seeing this behavior reflected back to me and going, ooh, ew. That's, I don't like that. And I see now why. I'm seeing like why this doesn't feel good. And in seeing why it doesn't feel good, I'm going, okay, I did this, and I recognize I did this, and I recognize this is a part of the journey. This is a part of the evolution of being, and I can see clearly why this is not a behavior that I want to continue, and why I will be aware and I will choose to act differently. And it's not about the comfort of other people. It's entirely about the integrity of my being. And my being is the whole being, right? And so it has to do with the recognition of that, and also the individuality of my experience and the importance of the individual experience of this collective. Collective's not even exactly the right word, of this comprehensive being. So I don't know if that makes any sense. I'll explain a little bit. But so the first video was a little bit older woman than me, and I smiled immediately. It was immediately a feeling of connection and recognition and resonance, and yes, I feel this. And she was talking about her experience. She was talking about her experience in the past 30 years, 30 plus years, that she had been on this journey, and learning slowly over all of this time how happiness, this myth of happiness, this myth that happiness is somewhere out there. That's essentially what we just talked about, that it's in some future place. It's in a career, it's in a body of a certain shape and a certain feeling, in your body. It's in a relationship, it's in a certain amount of money, it's in certain experiences, it's whatever. And so it's always out there, it's always in the future, it's always separate from you, separate from right now. And she had done a lot of the going and getting and come to the realization herself in her experience that the going and the getting is actually very hollow. It's actually hollow. There's actually no true lasting satisfaction there. It's a very shallow, temporary kind of satisfaction. And that everything that she was seeking, she could give to herself, was what she wanted from herself and wasn't giving to herself. Love, validation, acceptance, the permission to feel good in this moment. That's everything that we're actually seeking out there. And that when we stop seeking out there and we realize it as present right now, right here, that's where this whole shift starts to happen. And then, for some people, it can happen very quickly. I think for most people, including myself, it's a gradual process. It's a matter of practice now, because we've practiced this other thing for a long time. And so we're shifting all this momentum this other direction. And she was just talking about that. And it was, I really resonated, and it was her experience. She was talking from her experience, about her experience, and speaking, yes, in a very matter-of-fact way. That is, this is how it is, but not in a didactic, like, I'm going to educate you on how it is. There's a subtle difference in the vibration. I don't know how else to express it. It's the way that it feels. And that was the most notable difference between this video and the other video that I watched. A person speaking from their experience, from a place of knowing. And so, yes, speaking of knowing this to be true, but speaking of knowing it to be true from their experience, from themselves, from this place of being it, of living it. And not trying to convince, just expressing, just sharing, hey, this is what I've experienced, and maybe this will help somebody. But really, this is just an expression of what's true, what I've actually had happen. And the other video, first of all, a much younger person, and that's not to say anything bad about younger people. Just, it was clear that, this one is the one who has experienced, they've done the going and the getting, and they've experienced the hollowness of it. The other one is this, like, hustle manifestation, go get it, it's out there, it's ripe for the taking, like, go take it, that kind of feeling, that kind of mindset. And again, I've been there. I was in that stuff. There was a period of time where the imagined dream, which really wasn't authentic to me, but I was told over and over that, no, this is what you want to be. Like, not thinking that you're not it is just the imposter syndrome, right? You're blocking yourself from greatness. You're blocking yourself from greatness. Oh, God forbid. Because you could be greater than you are naturally, and your inherently divine form that can't be enhanced or diminished. Yeah, but you're not great enough yet, so go get more great. And I'm laughing because I can feel and see now the ridiculousness of it all. But I was in there. I was in that. And so I can relate. And that is what was triggering to me. It was this, having this moment of like, God, that was me. I did that shit. And to not feel ashamed, to recognize there's no shame. This was a part of the process. This was a step on the path. And I get to see now why that's not me. That's pretty awesome. But here it was, this video that is like, I will end your suffering in 20 minutes. like literally that. And you know, this clearly very intelligent young person, illustrating, and also the beginning, the starting with, this is not discussed on YouTube, and it's like secret information that's only been passed down through my family, that kind of thing. This whole this whole notion that anything is secret, really truly secret and unknown, and well, you can feel it. You can feel that just doesn't feel good, right? And again, I've been in that place. I've been in that place where I was like, I'm the holder of the key. This overinflated spiritual ego with, you know, just a taste of like fourth dimensional stuff. And it's me, and it's my purpose to share this gift, and I am the bringer of the gift, and whoo. I'm gonna turn down that heat because it's getting a little hot in here. I've been there, and that evidence is here on this channel, and I'm not gonna delete it because I want that. I want that to be visible. I want that to be visible as a part of this journey. You know, some things happened that at this point I can look back and go, yikes. But there's no shame in the process of growth, you know? That's just the way that it works. And so again, my intention is not to shame this person. It's just to recognize behavior that I have exhibited and that I understand now in a different way. And I know why it rubbed me the wrong way. And it's because it was this authority over. Because I wasn't speaking as my own authority for myself. I was speaking as an authority for other people. And that's where it all goes wrong. I recognize and realize now what a crossing of boundaries that is. What a no-no that is, in terms of energetic principle, in terms of how it really is. I want to use the word natural order as opposed to natural law, because again, that just the word law gets screwy. I don't care for it, but it is just like this is not how this works, and that's why it feels so icky, because it's not how it works. It's not how this is meant to be. I am my own authority, and I absolutely trust myself to know for myself what truth is. But my truth does not take the place of someone else's truth, nor does theirs take the place of mine. And that is standing in sovereignty. That is like discernment, actual discernment. Is this your truth, or is this my truth? And how are we treating this truth? Am I trying to foist my experience, which is true for me, upon you as this like universal thing, or vice versa? Because that's a boundary crossing. That is disrespecting the sovereignty and the authority of your being for your experience of it. And I see that now. I feel that now in a visceral, vivid, and a very different way from how I did then. And so that was, I understood why that immediately angered me. Why this presentation, and it was more of a presentation too than like a talking, angered me. Because I've been there, and this is showing me something that I don't want to do. And it's not to shame it, it's just recognizing this is not how it works, and we're moving on from this behavior. And it's not how it works, and this is, again, the second part of like why it's angering is because this is a disrespect of sovereignty. This is acting as an authority for someone else. And if you're acting as an authority for someone else, you are acting over their authority. And so we've created hierarchy again, which doesn't exist, which is not real. We've created this illusion of hierarchy, of something being above better than, more than. None of that is true. None of that is real or possible. And we're working. Sorry, the trash truck just pulled up behind me. I'm like, I think I'm far enough from the trash cans. Yeah, we're good. Anyway, we're working on a different level now, a level of awareness that is rooted in the sovereignty of being. The sovereignty of being your experience of being, which maybe we could call the self. That word, again, I find I have issues with it personally, but it's really hard to say any of these sentences without using the word self. So, whatever. The experience of being yourself, that is your experience, that is you, that is yours. And that is entirely your domain. You have authority over yourself, and you can and should trust yourself to know better than anyone else, to know yourself and your experience better than anyone else, and know that this is true of everyone's experience. So you're holding the space too for them to have their own, and recognizing that it does not trespass upon you. It's not a threat to you for another person to have an experience of their own that may appear totally contradictory to yours. That's fine. Again, that's where you're standing in yourself, in your authority, saying, have your experience. It is no threat to me because I trust and know myself and my being. And I am no threat to you and my knowing of my being. Because I'm not extending my boundaries to be around you. So there's no threat here. There's no contradiction here. And then there's like this third level of anger that is the perception of threat. And that's where the ego comes into this story and is like, you're not allowed to have a different experience because you're undermining my experience. That's not true. That's not true. Our experience of being is inherently subjective and personal and individual, and it is intended to be, especially in this realm. We are here to learn to be for ourselves everything. And I don't mean in in hyper individualist capitalistic way that is like, I'm going to be everything for myself. I'm going to be my own made man and my own employer and my own, like, that's all the surface level kind of bastardization of this, which is not to say that it can't be done in a way that is grown organically from the deeper level of sovereignty. But it has gotten twisted. I believe, from what I see, it has gotten twisted in that way. And that seems to me to be where all of this hustle culture kind of comes from, is this like, you have the power and you can do anything. And like, yes, that's true. But remember why we're here. Because we're not here to do. And nothing that we do here really matters. It's more about being. It is entirely about being, actually. It's entirely about just being. And being here now. And that's what we're here for, is to be here now. And experience the flow of the life which we are developing. Because it's stretched in this way that makes it appear as if not everything is present all the time, all at once. And that's a really interesting thing to experience. When you are that which is everything, to experience the slow growth of yourself, to actually experience the growth of yourself in this way, in this like extended slow motion progression, is really, really unique and really fascinating. And then to experience that knowing that you already are everything, that like everything is already done, And so there's nothing for you to do except to experience the unfolding of your complete being, right? Like you're complete, and you're experiencing the unfolding of your complete self, which is eternal. Can you feel how there's nothing, there's like no, when you feel into that space, there's none of this like, I need to achieve, I need to do, because there isn't any doing, there isn't any achieving. It's done. You're complete. It's all done. Nothing is missing. There's nothing for you to go and get. But there is this endless, like, awe-inspiring experience of, oh, there's more, and there's more, and there's more, and there's more, and it's amazing, and it just gets more amazing, and I just feel myself getting bigger, and it's like, because it's slow, I can really dive into it, I can dig into it and feel like my roots spreading, and my leaves unfurling, and there's more, and little buds forming, and it's like, that's where the deliciousness is, which I forget all the time, by the way. But it is, and it's always there. And I can say this from experience, and in a way that is not needing anybody to believe this. It's just, this is the expression of my experience. And I do want it to resonate with people, but it's resonating. It's just, I want to share the experience and feel the joy of that reflected back to me, you know what I mean, by others who have had this experience, and so can resonate. But it's not a need. It's not trying to convince anybody of anything. It's not, I'm not an authority on this. This is just like, wow, I see this, and it's beautiful. And then for other people to be like, yeah, I see that too, and it is so beautiful. It's, you know, you're not seeing through my eyes. We're seeing through our own eyes. But just to have that shared experience of like, this is what I see, and it is, and it's gorgeous, and I love it. And that's reinforcing your authority in yourself, for someone else to stand in their own and own it and say, this is me and this is mine, and this is what I feel. And then to other people to have the opportunity to say, yes, I feel this. Not because you feel it, I feel this. I feel this too. And we don't need each other. There's none of this, again, this like needing validation. I think that's a really key thing here from what it felt like, you know, when you're talking from this place of, that is more of ego. It needs agreement. It needs validation. We're not settled into this place yet of the being and the knowing of the experience. That is like, it doesn't matter what anybody else experiences. It doesn't matter if their experience is the total opposite of this. I am rooted in myself, and I trust myself, and I trust my knowing of my being, my direct experience. And I'm not trying to be an authority for anybody. I'm not trying to tell other people how to feel or how to live. I cannot do that. I cannot tell you how to live. I cannot tell you how to feel. That is you. That's your everything. Go do that. It's not even doing, it's just go experience, go be. Like, please be that for you. And then there's the subtle difference of, I was just talking with my wife about this the other night, of like the difference between being everything for someone in a relationship, like trying to be everything for someone, and the pressure of that, and the recognition that you are everything, and their recognition that they are everything, and seeing that reflected in one another. And so you are everything, but you're everything in yourselves. You just are everything. And so everything is taken care of in you. You don't need something from this other person. You see their everythingness everywhere, and that is your own everythingness reflected. And there's an absolute awareness of like, yeah, we're everything. But it's not this, I need you to be something. It's I already am everything, and I'm good, and so I don't need you to be anything. I don't need you to be anything. It's a very different feeling. Anyway, it's about time for me to get going, but that was fun. I'm glad that I expressed that. That felt good. And yeah, the three sort of pieces of like anger that I'm noticing recently, of behaviors that I've experienced and I'm having reflected to me, that I don't want to engage in those behaviors anymore. And number two, because why? Because they are overstepping someone else's sovereignty, and in the process disrespecting my own, because that is a disrespect. A disrespect of any sovereignty is a disrespect of all sovereignty. So yeah, and repressing things in myself too, same thing. That's not trusting my space to be my space, and that other people's space is their space. This whole notion that I could even cross a boundary in this way of being a danger to somebody, like that's not true either. And so then that reaches sort of the third degree of like the perception of threat by ego, and recognizing that there is no threat. There is no threat. I'm trusting myself. I am trusting all self. I'm trusting all being and all experience of being, and knowing that my experience is valid and safe and secure, and it doesn't affect anybody else. And so no one else's experience affects me. And so whatever their experience is, I can own and I can accept as thoroughly valid and true for them. It doesn't affect me. It does not affect or change my experience and what is thoroughly valid and true for me. And to stand in that place of the ownership of my own energy, the ownership of my own space, my own experience, that is being self-sovereign. That is being my own authority. And that's what I want to practice. So that's it. Have a beautiful day. I love you so much. Take it easy.